What is up, my friends? We are back with another reaction after Liverpool trounced Manchester United by 3 goals to nil. I'm joined by Mr. David Lynch, who I believe had a very interesting way to take in the game, David.
Yeah, so I got fortunate enough to get invited out to Oslo to meet the Liverpool supporters club out in Norway and watch the game with them. So really, really good experience. It was interesting actually. I was coming back from Oslo this morning and get to the passport control, and the guy out there at Oslo airport was saying, "Oh, just a short trip," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm out here for the I was out here for the Liverpool Manchester United game." And he was like looking at me flying back to Manchester, going, "You've done that the wrong way round, surely." So yeah, but it was a brilliant trip, and obviously the result and the performance capped it off. Atmosphere was fantastic, so yeah, really good way to take in the game.
Absolutely. We know what a loyal fan base Liverpool have from Norway and in that part of the world as well. So always great to see these connections between Liverpool fans and journalists and everybody in the Liverpool content creation world. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm sure you enjoyed the game as well, though, David. I mean, I guess let's start off from the start. The team selection is as we expected it to be, I guess. I think my own personal take on this is he's sticking with what he knows, let the international break happen, get a few more people up to speed. Obviously, Federico Chiesa joined since we last spoke as well. By the way, David, on Federico Chiesa, I'm sure you've seen the signing day vlog. I have not seen a person more happy and excited to be signing for Liverpool Football Club than Federico Chiesa.
Yeah, and I think that's brilliant because I just think it tells you where his mindset is, that he really is. It's not the case that he was in a way kind of forced out to Juventus in the way that they kind of pushed him to the door and wanted to make money on him this summer rather than letting him leave for free. But there's a real desire on his part to make the move to Liverpool. He knows how long they've admired him for as well, and they've been in contact with his camp for a long time. So he knows this is not a panic move from Liverpool. He's coming to somewhere he's really wanted. He's always wanted to try his hand at the Premier League, and he looks as happy as you or I if we were signing for Liverpool. It's just such a good sign. It bodes really well because I think if you've got a player who wants to be there that much, who's got his quality, and if they can keep him fit, could be an absolutely brilliant signing. So yeah, I really did enjoy watching that signing vlog. It was really good.
And even for Arna, he's getting a player now that he can work with over the international break because he's obviously not been called up to the Italian national team. And I'll tell you what, he's going to have a job getting in ahead of Mohamed Salah or any of those front three at the minute, David. But I guess we'll go straight back to the start of the game. And we pitched up with pretty much the same team that we expected. Ibrahim Kanate keeping his place alongside Virgil van Dijk. I have to say, for the first 3 or 4 minutes, I was a bit nervy because United were certainly keeping the ball, and we didn't see it, if my memory's right, for the first 3 minutes of the game. So started on the back foot, but from that point on, we just took over.
Yeah, I think that start is worth mentioning because I think maybe a little bit of nerves around it, the scars maybe of last season's games against them, three games and not beating them. That's part of it. Obviously, the Old Trafford atmosphere you have to acknowledge plays a part as well, particularly the start of the game there. And United got in a couple of moments of threat, didn't they? But I did think it was interesting that a lot of the threat they were causing seemed to be coming down Liverpool's side. They weren't kind of playing through Liverpool easily or anything like that. It was just getting down the sides where they could and maybe creating threat in 1v1 situations if they were able to isolate fullbacks. But it didn't really lead to anything too dangerous. And then after about 5 minutes of Liverpool kind of cruising through that and managing the threat well, they just started to create at will themselves and it started to look really, really dangerous. And that's when they started to kind of put the foot down a little bit. So, you always think in big games like this and going to Old Trafford, as we saw last season, even if United are in a bit of trouble, you're going to have moments where you have to suffer a little bit. And that was for Liverpool right at the start of the game. And, the way you manage those is kind of, you judge teams on that. And I thought Liverpool managed it pretty well to come out of it. And as I say, after 5 minutes, just started standing on Manchester United's neck, really.
Well, we had a week building up to it where Gary Neville was convincing the world that Manchester United's midfield was in better shape than Liverpool's. I think after those 5 to 10 minutes you spoke about, maybe 15, we've seen the class of Liverpool's midfield really start to take over. And Ryan Gravenberch, for me, David, was simply unplayable yesterday.
Yeah, outstanding. He's had a fantastic start to the season, hasn't he? And I think he kind of needed it because I think we were all fretting a little bit about that, not getting a six over the line, not getting a sign in there. I wrote a piece after they failed with the Zubimendi move saying, okay, this can happen, but I felt that Liverpool really needed a six. And I still think Liverpool will think they do as well. They probably want to swap out Endo for someone who maybe fits their profile in the long term, whether that be January or in the summer. But they've got at the moment someone who's playing there as a first choice in Ryan Gravenberch, who is absolutely excelling. And I think he was a little bit more advanced at times, actually, but he just did, for the majority of the game, he's in that double pivot playing, primarily as a six. And I think he just has a lot of qualities to excel there. The long legs to get the interceptions, to nick the ball out. He's really intelligent with that. The ability to take the ball in really pressure situations. I mean, the goal that Liverpool have disallowed, Van Dijk fires a pass into him in a really tough spot, and his control and ability to sort of turn his body just gets him immediately out of pressure and in at the back four. And so he makes that moment with a really good drive, and that's the goal that's disallowed. And then he kind of does it again in terms of a perfect example of what you want from your six around the opening goal. You get it's a poor pass from Casemiro, don't get me wrong, but it's made to look so poor because Gravenberch's anticipation for the interception is very, very good. You see him moving as soon as Casemiro opens his body to play the pass. So he gets in there, nicks it, and then incisive run forward, good weight of pass out to Salah, and then Liverpool have got an overload at the back post. Now, we can talk about the six, and so many people have, but at the moment, you have to say in these 3 games, and in that moment in particular, what more could you want from your six? That's an interception in a deep position, using the ball incisively from there to feed the forwards, and it's setting Liverpool up with the opening goal there. It's just a perfect example of what he brought. And it wasn't just that; his entire game was very, very good. He looked so threatening coming forward, but also he did all that defensive dirty work we were maybe worried was not a natural thing for him. So he's doing really, really well. I'm sure there will be a game where he struggles at some point, where the fact he isn't an absolute natural, or he's a young player and he's inexperienced in certain moments, we will see that. But I think I think the majority of what we've seen so far has been very, very good, and I think Liverpool, have got a very, very good number 6 option there at the moment in Ryan Gravenberch, and long may that continue.
I think Arne touched on this, and I will talk more about Arne Slot in a while, but the response to that goal being ruled out, they didn't let their heads drop. They continued to go. As you said, Ryan kept doing the right things in midfield, spotted that pass from Casemiro. We talked through the goal. Salah dinks it to the back post. Luis Diaz scores. And from that moment on, there was only going to be one result in that game, and Liverpool continued to up the ante. The chances kept coming. I mean, we've got to be honest and say Alisson had a little bit to do in the game as well, and what he was asked to do, he did admirably. But Liverpool's front 3 just looked so sharp, particularly in those 2 wide areas. Salah and Diaz, they just ripped them apart, David. It was a real joy to watch, and one of the greatest things you can do away from home was quieten the crowd, and the United fans had nothing to get behind.
Yeah, on the Alisson stuff, actually, I think that's worth noting, really, is that a couple of big saves from him in the game, but I think a lot of that really came when United were 3-0 down. I mean, you look at the expected goals tally, and that kind of makes it look like it was an even game. But the fact is, Liverpool kind of took the foot off the gas at 3-0, and United were just pushing as hard as they could to try and find some sort of consolation so that the crowd stopped absolutely hating them. So, that really affected it. That's where a lot of United's XG came from. The fact is, if it had been 2-0 and a little bit tighter, I think would have managed that out and sort of, won the game on XG more comfortably. And that would have really shown the gap that there was between the two sides, really. And you'd also got to think that Liverpool, with a little better decision-making in the final third as well, that their XG tally and actual amount of goals scored could have been much higher. Because they were just getting in there time and time again, and just passing through United. And it's one of the things that it's not necessarily about the front 3 itself in terms of how incisive they were. It's more about the thing that's really impressing me at the moment is that in possession structure. United just couldn't get a press going because Liverpool are staggered in the way that they build up, and the position is really good. You've always got options to create overloads in central or wide positions wherever they need to go to progress the ball. They do it, and I think that speaks to how well coached they are. But they just executed that brilliantly yesterday and had no problem whatsoever passing through United. Whereas on the other side of things, up until United were 3-0 down, they could not really pass through Liverpool. And that if you've got a side that is so good on both sides of the ball in that way, that's a very, very good football team. And I think that's what we've seen in these first 3 games.
We came into this season wanting a little bit more return from Lucho. And I think it's fair to say after the miss against Ipswich in the opening day, he has been red hot since then. I mean, his form even in that game was very good. Mohamed Salah, of course, adding assists to his growing tally of collections at Old Trafford. He owns that place at this point. I think 10 goals there, which is just incredible to speak about. The second goal for me was really impressive from Lucho and Mo. Mo knew exactly where to put the ball, and the cleverness and awareness of Lucho to know where he was, to know he couldn't take a touch, and to catch Onana out with that strike at the near post. I thought he was incredible, and I am also looking forward to the battle between himself and Cody Gakpo as the season goes on, because we've spoken about strength and depth, or the lack of it in particular areas in the squad, but on that side, David, we're very well stacked.
Yeah, and I always think with Diaz as well, if he does continue to add those goals, where's his real weakness? You know, he's so good in so many aspects. His dribbling, his ability to he drags Liverpool up the pitch time and time again with that. You know, he can beat a man, he can work space for others. You know, in terms of his work rate off the ball is brilliant as well. So, you know, he's given you so much, and then it was just a case, and we all thought it. You know, and also it's kind of a reason why Liverpool would have been, if Barcelona had arrived with the cash, Liverpool would have had a real think about it. Diaz wasn't in a position where he wasn't for sale this summer. It was something Liverpool would think about, and that is very much where the Anthony Gordon interest comes from. But if Diaz does add those goals and assists at the rate that he is doing at the moment, then you kind of, well, what's his weakness? What's to stop him being an absolutely elite left winger? What, you know, do Liverpool need to add something there? It's, you know, it's just been a brilliant start to the season from him. I mean, you wonder whether he's just on a little bit of a hot streak and it'll calm down and he'll be more frustrating around his finishing going forward. So we can't get carried away. We'll have to see how that pans out. But he's doing very, very well at the moment. And if those goals continue to be added to his game, then yeah, Liverpool have got a brilliant starting left winger, and then Cody Gakpo in reserve, who's not a bad player either himself. So real strength in depth on that left wing and up front as a whole. Really, it's the options there are ridiculous now. They've added Chiesa.
Oh, it's incredible the options that Arna has, and the versatility of Federico Chiesa as well. You can see a good split from the positions he played for Juventus between central, left, and right, and that must be a joy for Arna to know that he has up his sleeve. We spoke a lot of the time about duels, and particularly from the first couple of games, particularly Jarell Kwanzaa, actually. We made the substitution against Ipswich. Canada came on, has made the position his own since. But one stat that stood out to me yesterday was Liverpool won 72% of their aerial duels against Manchester United yesterday, and that is impressive.
Yeah, and these things it's the dirty side of the game, but it's the basis of it. It's how you go to somewhere like Old Trafford and you dominate the game, because if United can't play through you, they're going to try and go long. They're going to try and just create those little moments of doubt at the back. So you have to be strong. You have to win your duels, and that's something, you know. It's really encouraging. I think how big Slot is on this as well. He's all for bringing his technical football, but he recognises that in these games you have to be physically dominant as well, or you don't get to play your football. So I love that he's brought that to Liverpool and that he totally understands that this is what the Premier League is about. Because it's been as big a part of Liverpool's success so far as the intricate patterns of play. You know, the fact that they've battled well alongside that. I mean, you know, when you put Canate alongside Van Dijk, I think he's really reminding people of how good he is. You know, we kind of forgot towards the back end of last season, and he's absolutely back on it. And he's as dominant as anyone when it comes to aerial duels. You know, almost Van Dijk levels of winning headers. So, yeah, I think it just keeps giving Liverpool a platform. And, you know, I thought Xerxes, you know, United kept trying to put him in physical battles with Liverpool's centre halves to kind of unsettle them. And I thought he had a terrible game, to be honest. I thought he got completely dominated by Van Dijk and Canate. And kept really quiet. And you know, like I say, I always say that gives you the foundation then to be yourselves and impose yourself on the game. And Liverpool then use that really well.
Just to use one of your own tweets, we've played 3 games, we've scored 7 goals, we've conceded none. It's almost perfect. And one thing that stood out to me yesterday, and I actually really enjoyed from Anthony Taylor, was how he let the game flow. And he wasn't blown up for any of these. I wouldn't even call them 50-50s. They were just good challenges by Liverpool nicking the ball back. Some United fans online unhappy about some of these decisions. I thought Anthony Taylor got them spot on. And of course, another turnover of possession led to Mohamed Salah's annual goal at Old Trafford. And that wasn't an easy finish either, David, by the way. That was a very good finish from Mo.
Yeah, we should praise the referee, by the way, because, I mean, every time you see a referee appointment, there's complaints about it. He's going to be this and that, or he's from the Greater Manchester area and all that kind of nonsense. But then nobody ever references if the ref has a good game, and he did have a good game. He generally does when he does these Old Trafford matches, so you should note it, because we're always so unfair to refs from time to time, aren't we? So it's worth mentioning when a ref manages a game well, and I thought he very much did. So I'm glad you kind of highlighted that. And yeah, on Mohamed Salah, it literally, what more can you say? Is it 15 goals in 16 appearances against United and 6 assists in that time? I mean, they must be absolutely sick of him. There are some fans out there who still doubt how good Mohamed Salah is, but I think fans of other clubs, I must say, but I doubt there are many of Manchester United persuasion who aren't aware of the fact that he's one of the greatest Premier League players of all time. And really, really interesting what happens with his deal now. And he is clearly trying to put pressure on Richard Hughes and putting the ball in Liverpool's court, because he very much wants to stay. But that's also helpful from Liverpool's perspective, by the way, because I think they will look at that situation now, and he's almost coming to them and saying, "I want to stay. Let's sort this out." And in terms of a negotiation, and a hard-headed negotiation, which is what this has to be, having the player basically making the approach to you puts you in a pretty strong position. So I actually think Liverpool, even though that's uncomfortable for that to be out there, will kind of be quite happy about the fact he said that, and he's basically played his hand a little bit.
Absolutely. And all three gentlemen can't do any more. Trent is coming into the prime of his career, 25 years of age, homegrown lad, vice captain. Virgil came off a statistically top-notch season last season after one that he said he wasn't really trusting his body, the one before yet, because of his ACL. And Mohamed, as you said, could not have started the season any better. So it is absolutely balls in Richard Hughes' court right now. And I expect they get done. Maybe I'm an optimist on this one, but as you said, the vibes from Mohamed Salah certainly indicated that he knows he's at a good place. And if there was any thoughts of let's wait and see how the manager settles in, what style of football is like, I'm sure Arne Slot has dampened those doubts, if indeed there was any already.
I think for Salah as well, the key question was, look, is he going to want to try something else? Is that going to be a factor in his mind? But I think what Liverpool have always kind of needed to know from his side of things is, there's going to have to be an element of compromise. They may feel that a 3-year deal is a little bit too risky for them. Can they knock him down to a 2? Is that where we find the compromise going forward? And if you've got a player coming out and basically, he did effectively say, didn't he, that he's desperate to stay. And we now know that Mel Reddy reported as well that that's kind of the player's preference. So if he's coming to saying that, there will be a willingness to compromise, which I think is probably what Liverpool needed to see, really. I've always said that would be the hardest contract to do because of the sums involved. But if you've got a player there who's looking as good as he is and is maybe willing to compromise on adding a further 2 years, I think that would be absolutely perfect for everyone, really. And so hopefully that can get done, because, yeah, if the player's saying it and there's the real keenness there, then I think that makes it a lot easier for Liverpool than it otherwise might have been.
On the 2 to 3 year contract extension and whether 2 is the right number, 3 is the right number, one thing that's really impressed me with Arne so far is he's mindful of the rest of the season already. You can see it in the decisions that he's making. If you introduce Federico Chiesa, obviously Arne can probably then manage Mohamed Salah's minutes a little bit better as the season gets into 2 games a week. And this is something, David, I've been really impressed about. The substitutions, the thought process of thinking ahead. And I'm excited because Arne Slot has come in. He's not tried to be Jurgen Klopp. He's come in to be his own man. And he's so assured, he's so calm, he's so technical. Everybody's been blown away and impressed by him. And I just want to highlight the substitutions because, again, he did it with Trent. Trent took it a lot better, was a lot more happy this time. But I think it's great man management, and I think he understands, yes, it's 1 game a week now, but after this international break, it really, really kicks into gear.
And it's just so important. Liverpool cannot keep getting the injuries they've been getting. I've had conversations this week around, some people maybe tweeting me to say kind of, oh, well, Liverpool probably should have signed a centre-half. That was something they should have been looking at this window. But I always maintain, just to use that as an example, that Liverpool shouldn't need 5 centre-halves, 5 first-team worthy centre-halves if they only play 2 at a time. 4 is definitely enough. The reason that we think that 5 is what is needed is because they get so many injuries in that position. And you can, that's the same for whether you need 9 midfielders or whether, you shouldn't really need it if you can manage the minutes well and you're not putting players through, the mangle almost physically. And that's been a consistent theme of recent years and a reason that Liverpool have continued to get injuries. Now, Arne Slot, his injury record, along with Ruben Peters at Feyenoord, big factor in him being appointed. So the key element here really is kind of, Liverpool are hoping that a big goal for Arne Slot this season is to ensure that Liverpool get fewer injuries and they can get the better players on the pitch more regularly when they need them. And that includes, making tough decisions, or what Trent would consider a tough decision of missing the last 20 minutes of a game where he could get another assist or a goal. But the value is going to be there, like you say, at the end of the season, when hopefully Liverpool are getting there, not absolutely knackered, not running out of steam in the way they did last season, not having come through a horrendous injury crisis, as was the case last season. The fact that Arne Slot, by the way, had his first press conference as Liverpool manager or ahead of a Premier League game and was asked any team news, and he kind of said, everyone's fit. I was absolutely stunned by that. I couldn't believe it because it's been so long since that happened. So, and I know they've got Curtis Jones, a little minor injury, hopefully back after the international break. But to have got to this point with only one injury at the moment is kind of unheard of. So I think it shows that his methods already are kind of bearing fruit. And the proof will be come the end of the season what shape they're in. But I think it's really, really good management. It's brave management, even if your players aren't happy about it. From time to time, and I really do think that the benefits of that will be seen as the campaign moves forward.
I've been incredibly impressed with Arne Slot since he's come in, and I'm talking about right from the summer. He's a man who feels like, to me, he knows he's at the level he belongs at now. He was patient, he waited for the right move, he turned down the opportunity for Spurs and a couple of other clubs. I've been so impressed with him, the way he's just carried himself, the way he's gone about his business. He knows he's coming into a club after an iconic manager, and it doesn't seem to bother them one bit, David. He knows he is where he deserves to be, and his tactical acumen is phenomenal, if I'm being honest. And I don't know a Liverpool fan. I know many who may have doubted beforehand, but I don't know many now who doubts that decision that Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes made was their first choice for a reason, despite Gary Neville's protestations that he was the third choice. We know Alonso was looked at because of the link. But you've always said to me there was never any clear first choice that was put out there until they made the move, and that was Arne Slot.
Yeah, and they were genuinely big fans of Arne Slot for several reasons. What he'd achieved at Feyenoord with the lesser budget in that league, obviously tactical acumen, as you say, personality as well, a big part of it. And we are already seeing those early signs. Very cool, calm, and collected, isn't he? Tactically brilliant, as you say. And I think that the calmness and the collectedness, you could see that in his team yesterday. One of the things that I'm scared of making the comparison sometimes, because I never want to do Jurgen down. I mean, the things he's achieved at Liverpool are true legend. But I felt, particularly in last season's games against Manchester United, the team was almost in Jurgen's image, a little bit too emotional, a bit too gung-ho at times. Whereas they went to Manchester United this time and were just so calm and ruthless and controlling of the game. And that gave you a completely different performance to what we saw last year, and obviously then a very different result as well. And the fact that he's been able to have that kind of imprint his personality on the team really so quickly kind of shows you how good a manager is. And it is hard to not get carried away by what we've seen, because it's just been so good and so reflective of him as a manager so far. There are tests to come, bigger tests. United are terrible. Ipswich and Brentford, will see where they finish. There are bigger tests, but it's just been almost perfect so far. And that is when you've got a new manager coming in who's following a legend. It's exciting that it's gone so well so far.
Of course, we now start the first of 3 international breaks for September, October, and November, which is both frustrating and good. I hate going in off the back of a loss because the international break feels like it goes on forever. But to go in off the back of a 3-0 victory, I mean, I think that's going to keep me sweet over the 2 weeks, David, to be honest with you. Before I let you go, one more thing that just came out, a little quote from Fabrizio Romano speaking about Liverpool still appreciating Zubimendi, still open to the idea of Zubimendi. Do you think that in some weird world, if he had second thoughts, if maybe he backtracked a bit, Liverpool would still be interested in that down the line?
Yeah, I don't think they'll have taken offence from what happened. I don't think that was completely closed off and there were, angry phone calls or anything like that. It's just, I think there was an acceptance. Sometimes it is what it is. That situations happen in football, and they also felt that pressure was being put on the player from Real Sociedad's side more than anything else. It wasn't a U-turn where they felt he'd been traitorous to Liverpool or anything like that. It was they felt that Real Sociedad had played a big role in that. So the fact that we know Liverpool, they have a very narrow list of targets. That's why they're so good at signings, coming in and doing well. Compare that to Manchester United, where it's okay, we need a player in this position and they will get one, even if he's sixth in the list. The fact is Liverpool are very good because they are so targeted in the signings. And we know Zubimendi ticks so many boxes for them. So, the fact that Real Sociedad haven't had a great start to the season, do they start thinking when it gets to January, should we just cash in? It's probably not worth it. If the player's ready at that point to make the move and feels like, okay, I made a mistake in staying, I don't think Liverpool would rule that out at all, because they like everything about the player. They'd identified him, and clearly they didn't see anybody else on the market in that moment who would fit the bill for them at the number 6 position. So, yeah, I don't think they've taken any offence. I think there's a real, there's a chance there that if the player gives the nod and Real Sociedad are willing to let him go, that potentially in January it could be reignited. So, maybe one to keep an eye on.
Also, it's, I guess, interesting to note that he still hasn't signed that new contract, or hasn't been given that new contract that we've spoken about. He's since seen a teammate of his depart for the Premier League, and Arsenal have been very unfortunate there, for being honest. I mean, for him to, was it dislocate or have a fracture in his shoulder or something like that, immediately going there. Imagine that happened in this situation. Imagine how we'd be feeling right now if it was Zubimendi who came into Liverpool after a whole summer of fighting with Real Sociedad to get him. I do have a bit of sympathy for Mikel Arteta, just a little bit now, just a little bit, David.
Not to be honest. I suppose if it happened to Liverpool, you'd be like, well, it doesn't actually matter because they've kind of just got the best number 6 in the world from nowhere, and Ryan Gravenberch, I suppose. But yeah, I still think Liverpool's a desire there to add that little bit of extra quality. I think it's the one area of the squad you could say, if you just added one more player there to create a rotation between Gravenberch and Zubimendi, that, or someone like that, that would be real quality throughout the squad then. So it's an exciting possibility that could come back come back as a possibility going into January. And as you say, that contract situation, the fact he hasn't signed a new one yet, that keeps Liverpool in the game, because it doesn't push his release clause up yet. Liverpool know what they would have to pay. So, if he hasn't signed one in a couple of months' time, then I would say that's an active possibility, which is exciting, the idea that you could be adding him to the squad then.
That's enough to get me through the international break, Dave. Just even the possibility of that. Before I let you go, my friend, I just want to check what you have coming up over the next couple of weeks to let people know about. I know it's the international break, but we're all football junkies, so I'm sure there's something that you're doing to keep yourself occupied and sane.
Yeah, so I guess over YouTube and Substack, as usual, kind of over the international breaks, good period to reflect, isn't it? Maybe talk about those contract situations and where what's coming up for Liverpool and what they've got to look ahead to after the international break. So I think it's kind of that more reflective stuff. So, but looking forward to getting into it, because when you bounce into an international break after 3 wins from 3-0 goals conceded, the mood's much happier and people are more willing to read it. So it's good news for all of us, I guess.
Well, we always appreciate your time, Dave, but I know you're just in from the airport as well, so it does mean a lot that you've taken the time to come on and have a chat with us. Enjoy the international break, regroup, and I'm sure we'll chat afterwards.
Thank you.
David Lynch, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. You know what to do. Let us know your thoughts. We do appreciate your support. Much love, my friends. Bye-bye.